Welcome to the Leader to Leader podcast. I'm your host, Susan Spears. Our guest today is Rebecca Purdy. She is the executive director of the Central Rappahannock Regional Library here in the Virginia system, in Virginia, which is, what will we call it? That we don't want to say Northern Virginia, but Central Virginia, Fredericksburg, Virginia, Central Rappahannock Regional Library. Welcome, Rebecca.
So thanks for having me, Susan. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a different way to say it. I usually will say to our listeners, because they're from all over the world, we're kind of halfway between Washington, D.C., if you look at a map, and Richmond, Virginia, which is our capital. So we love our location, right?
It's great, yeah.
It really is. We're so close to everything. Let me tell you a little bit about Rebecca before we dive into a few questions here. And I'm so excited to have her here because one of the pieces I'm just going to jump to in her bio is she is a Leadership Fredericksburg graduate. And that's really how I got to know her super well, even though she'd been active with our Regional Chamber of Commerce for many years. Now listen to this. She first started at the Central Rappahannock Regional Library in 1984 as a library page, shelving books and working her way up to her current role as executive director, which she's held since October 1 of 2024. Super exciting. That is a long career to be dedicated to one fantastic organization and to have literally so many jobs in the organization. It's going to be great to talk about that. Rebecca is also a graduate of the University of Mary Washington, which is located right here in our region, and she has a Master of Library and Information Science from the Catholic University of America. Additionally, she's a graduate of the Leadership Development at Virginia Institute of Government, Weldon Cooper Center for Public Government at the University of Virginia, Public Innovators Lab for Libraries, American Library Association's Leadership Institute, and I bet you there's more, but these are what I was given from her bio. Plus, of course, Leadership Fredericksburg. I'm so excited that you're here today.
Thank you, Susan. I'm so glad to be here.
Thank you. I'm waking her up a little bit, and we're also looking out the window because there's just a little bit of snow flurries outside. Not a lot, so we're kind of watching that while we're coming together for this podcast. So thank you again. Now let's hear a little bit from your perspective about your leadership journey.
Sure. I think like with any leader, it started when I was an employee, right? With a start time and an end time for my job. And I was looking around and watching how the managers were managing me, managing others, what they were doing. And I was always thinking about my experiences, what's working well and what could work better. When I actually became a manager for the first time, I had just finished grad school. I'd never taken a single management class because, believe it or not, they didn't have them.
Oh, I remember. We're on a similar journey on our timelines.
Yeah.
Yes.
No idea what I was doing. I had 3 direct reports, and only for a few months later, the other manager on the same floor as I was working on, left, and I inherited her staff as well. So while the 2 departments had worked closely together for years and I had an idea about the work that they did, I was managing people that's what I really needed to learn. And at this point, amazing programs like Leadership Fredericksburg didn't exist. So
right.
I was learning on the fly, but I was also a single mom, and all of my reading time was devoted to my child or dictated by my job and youth services. There weren't webinars at the time, so I really had to kind of figure out how to do it on the job. And luckily I had a group of staff who were incredible professionals. I had some amazing mentors who helped me out, and I was a perfectionist, and that actually helped me in the beginning of my career. It helped me evaluate and reevaluate my every decision so that I could learn from it and grow and do better next time. So while that was a great start, it wasn't good enough long term, right? So I eventually had to really buckle down, make time for reading those leadership books. Today, I'm an avid podcast listener, especially on leaderships, and I've taken a lot of leadership classes, and you referenced some of those in the introduction.
So I'm envisioning you with that first role and the 3 employees. I definitely relate to it. Right out of college, became a retail manager of a cosmetics department and had like maybe 7 or 8 employees, and many of them were much older than me. and had more
Yes.
experience. And so it was, I call that, in my mind, I call it my rough and tumble time. Because man, did I make mistakes
Oh, yeah.
as I kind of pushed my way through it. How would you describe it? How you pushed your way through some of that with the very beginning? You just talked about it a little, how you analyzed and looked at it, but what did it really feel like to you?
Felt like, it was such a busy time of my life, and
Yeah.
like you're saying, I was young. I had just finished grad school, and I did that maybe a year or two after I graduated from college, and I took the traditional timeline there. It was a little terrifying, and you said made some mistakes. I made some mistakes,
Yeah.
and luckily I had really great people around me and leaders around me who supported me through it and helped me learn from my mistakes.
Nice.
Gave me the benefit of the doubt and some grace when I
Oh,
needed it.
yeah, that's so important.
Yeah.
And it makes you look back and remember that as you have folks that are newer with you through the years, right?
Yes, it really
Yeah,
does. It really does. It's invaluable.
That's a real gift. And I think that we have a different level of confidence now than we may. Sometimes people have that right from the beginning, but I definitely didn't as I was working my way through that.
No.
So much at that time is we are led by emotions too when we're maybe earlier or younger in our career comparatively. But I know that your style may be more data driven or analytical. Like how would you describe your leadership style? Maybe then to now, is it the same or?
No, I was much more reactive then than I am now. I'm much more thoughtful in my leadership style. I'm much more willing to listen, which I think is really important. And that's advice I got from one of my mentors through the years is, just seeing her attend meetings and be quiet, speak only when it was necessary. Now that's something I'm still struggling with, but I am in meetings, especially internal meetings. But I am proud of my ability to listen externally in particular. I think I'm better there. I'm better at listening, I think, to staff openly. I hope to staff openly and not taking it personally when the time comes. So I think my style has evolved in that way. I like to coach and mentor staff. I really enjoy that piece of it.
It is interesting to me that even though early in that early stage you were paying attention to notice, oh, this is the behaviors of my mentor. So sometimes with a mentor you might only hear some of their guidance, right? But you were observant of that, and that I find that interesting that you did that. Tell me a little bit more about some of the mentors or folks that have impacted your leadership.
So I'm really lucky. I didn't have just one strong mentor. I kind of had 5.
Okay. I think that's wonderful. Tell me about it.
Yeah. So I began working for the library system, like you mentioned, shelving books when I was a sophomore in high school. And there I met 5 women who were leaders in the library who were working in various roles. And they were all doing different things. They were all librarians. That was the commonality. They were all wonderful leaders. Some were mothers. Some weren't. Some were in grad school while they were working. Some working part-time. Some full-time.
Nice.
And they really showed me as a teenager a whole world of a way for a woman and a leader to be. They all served as tremendous influences from that time until the last one retired in 2017. So they were with me a long time. And, I learned a variety of lessons, like the importance of letting staff and colleagues know a bit about who you are as a person.
Okay.
You cannot just be, Rebecca Purdy, librarian. You have to pick and choose what you want to share, right?
Right.
But they need to know that you're, for me, I chose to let them know I was a mother, a wife, my interests. We talk about books that we read, which can be very personal as well. The concept of giving staff a task and guidance and letting them do it without micromanaging. That's a very valuable lesson. The importance of being direct when it's called for. That can be tricky and it can be scary, I think, especially as a woman sometimes to be direct. But, sometimes it is absolutely necessary.
Right.
And as Brene Brown says, clear is kind, unclear is unkind. And then, as I mentioned earlier, like knowing when to speak and when to keep quiet.
Well, there's a lot there, and I'm going to guess those 5 different ladies are all very different. I said different twice. That was good, Susan. But yet they've combined to bring about this great mixture, of qualities that you're carrying on. I mean, that is so beautiful.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And one of them has passed.
Okay.
But one of the highlights of being hired as executive director was that the 4 of them that remain took me out for drinks and celebration. And it really,
how magnificent.
It really was. It really was one of the highlights.
I hope you got a photo to capture that moment.
We didn't.
So it's just in your mind. Well, or can you meet again?
Yeah, we will definitely have to do that for the photo, if nothing else.
I think so. I think you need that.
Yeah.
It's really special. And think about them and how great it must have felt to be there to see you in that moment when they've known you that whole time.
Right. Literally since I was a child.
Yeah.
Right? I was 14.
Right. Oh, yeah. And to support you. I mean, that's just incredible. What a great, and also what a great lesson or example for the folks that are working with you now to see all of that. Yeah, I think that's amazing. So it's interesting when you said about sharing who you are. It sounds like you still gave that thought. So there's a difference in some of your style and my style. I'm very relational, out there, extroverted, all that. And so some of my mistakes would be sharing too much.
Right.
Right. And so over time I've tightened that up like you. Kind of thought about it like a brand. So you all don't know this, but before we started the interview, we talked about Tom Brady for at least 3 minutes, maybe 5. And anybody that listens to more than one episode know it usually comes up, but that's part of the brand, So I guess it's a different way of looking at it, but it's how today it's these things, but it used to just be wide open. Mm-hmm. So it's amazing how we've come up and made it through with these different ways of looking at how we find our way through that leadership journey.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
And I'm reserved and an introvert. Surprise, surprise. I'm a librarian. Some things are true. So for me, I really did have to think about it because I think I was so reserved that I would not share much of anything if I had not given it thought. It's my natural inclination to keep it tight. So I have to think about how to build upon my my natural inclinations for the betterment of my colleagues, staff, community.
What do you think has resonated most, or I should say connected you the most of the things you decided to share?
This may not be a fair assessment considering I work at a library, but I think the books, we have these calls once or twice a month that we do. Any staff member can attend, and they are on a particular topic, and then it's open questions and answers for anything for leadership who's in the room. And inevitably, we always land on what we're reading, watching, listening to, and it's really been a great way to connect. And I may not tell everyone that I occasionally read a romance, but I never hesitate to tell the people I work with.
I love it. Yeah, the complete escapism. We're done. We're not. We're just gonna.
No.
We just got to go over here today. I love it.
Stop thinking and just relax and enjoy.
I love it. This is really random. Do you remember like first or second book you ever read as a kid?
Not exactly. I was a huge Little House on the Prairie fan.
Okay. Is that 4th grade, 3rd grade, 5th grade?
A little earlier, I think.
Earlier.
2nd and 3rd.
I'm guessing. I didn't read those, so that's why I'm guessing.
Yeah, I had the whole series, the yellow with the Garth Williams illustrations. And then I had a wonderful teacher who introduced me to Louisa May Alcott. So a lot of the classics as a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read, I think the first sort of almost grown-up-ish book, not really, Where the Red Fern Grows.
Yes.
In 3rd grade. I remember that. And in 2nd grade, I think it was Harriet the Spy.
Oh, yeah. It's a wonderful one, yeah.
And I was like, I read all the time. So those still kind of sit with me as, because it was so early. Mm-hmm. And then we would have those, we would have those things in the summer at the library where, can you read 50 books this summer? And you'd write it down, and I'd be like, I'm going to read 80 or whatever it was.
Meet your goals. We still have a reading club.
So much fun. All right, back to talking about leadership. See, I'm having so much fun with you today.
Good.
What quality or characteristic is something that you do think every leader should have?
Commitment.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, leadership is not easy, and it's not glamorous, and it comes with great responsibility, and it comes with risk.
Yes.
And it's not something that should be entered into lightly. As a matter of fact, I actually worked with a wonderful executive coach, Jenna Cooley, before I even decided that I would apply for this position.
Oh, that's very smart.
I'd been thinking about it, and I wanted to make sure I was 100% in and committed to serving the staff, the jurisdictions, and all of our communities in this new role. It's not something to take lightly.
Yeah. So was that when you did the coaching, and the really cool thing about coaching is it's not therapy. They don't give advice. And it's a different kind of relationship where a coach really helps you pull out the answers to your own questions, and you guide your path. So sounds like Jenna did that beautifully with you. Anything else from going through that coaching? Because you said you like to mentor and coach. So is that as a result of that, or are you already doing that?
I like to think that I've been mentoring and coaching staff.
Yeah.
As a manager and a leader for years.
Mm-hmm.
I think I definitely learned some things from Jenna that I apply.
That's great.
In as a manager and leader in the organization. I think one of the big things was energy management with
right.
Jenna, right? Because, and I think that's an important part, especially in this new role that still resonates and still is something that I'll say struggle with, making sure that I am giving energy to the right places, and making the time I need so that I can restore. So I'm trying to be very conscientious about how many networking events that I'm doing, for example, again.
Yeah.
Because for me, they are very draining. Some people are
Yes.
energized by them.
Yes.
So I am really being conscientious about where I am giving that extra energy to, because I have to be there for staff. I have to be there for my board. I have to be there for the jurisdictions. And I can't do that and do everything.
Yeah. And speaking of that, because all of our listeners won't know, tell me a little bit more about this organization that you are in charge of, the Central Rappahannock Regional Library. I think it is more than one building.
Yes, it is more than one building.
Tell us about that. Buildings, number of employees, that kind of thing, so we can get an idea of the scope of what you're managing.
Sure. We have 9 library branches, traditional library branches.
Yep.
We have 2 satellite locations out in rural Spotsylvania. We have an idea space making and media lab. We have a library administration center where the admin staff works. There are about 250 employees of the library system at all of those locations spread out. The majority of part-time. We only have about 75 full-time employees. And our funders are Stafford County, Spotsylvania County, the City of Fredericksburg, and Westmoreland County. So we are working with 4 different jurisdictions. The library board consists of 2 representatives from each of those localities, except Westmoreland has 1 representative. Some are elected officials. Some library board trustees are elected officials, and some are citizens. And so we are navigating relationships with a wide swath of employees, government employees, jurisdictions, and things like that.
Yeah, that's when you look at that on the map, the difference between Westmoreland and North Stafford is like night and day.
Right. They're all very different. Some are more rural, some are much more growing. I mean, Stafford's one of the fastest growing counties in the state, right, or in the country. I think even at one point they were saying
it is is. Growing up in this area, it was what I recall, maybe 2 high schools there.
Mm-hmm. I went to one of them.
Stafford and North Stafford, right? That was it. And they probably had around 80 to 90,000 folks living there. And today, I mean, that's just skyrocketed.
It really has.
You know, the region as a whole, well, our region is a little different than yours. The planning district has a couple different jurisdictions. But as a whole, that our planning district is now over 400,000. And just not that long ago, that was 300,000. Right. So we're in a fast growing area. And not only that, but throughout the course of your career, technology's really evolved and changed how libraries work.
Oh, yes. I remember the night I was literally working on the desk at the Fredericksburg branch, second floor, and a computer showed up.
Oh, wow.
And that was the first computer was there for the public to use. And
a computer.
We knew nothing.
It has arrived.
I know, right? Well, we didn't know it was coming, so it was a pleasant surprise.
That's so cool.
But there it was. Yeah. So, yes, things have changed a little bit since I first started.
Yeah. Well, as you think about that change, for folks that are just starting out now and might be interested in one day having a career path like yours, even ultimately running or managing the library, what advice would you give to somebody like that today?
I think that you need to know when you're the expert and when you're not.
Okay.
And realize that you are the expert less often than you think, than you might want to be. For example, as a leader, I think you're ultimately responsible, but you can't know everything. And one of the most important things that you can do as a leader is to know the difference. So if you're coming up in libraries, learn what you can, but don't expect that you're gonna know everything ultimately. I think a good leader surrounds themselves with smart, passionate, trustworthy people and lets them do what they do best. And as one of my mentors said regularly, I don't know, but I can find out. And I recognize that can be a scary thing for a leader to say, because I think there's this pressure that you have to know all of it. And sometimes, though, the best answer is for a leader to say, let me look into that and get back to you. And I don't think a leader should be scared to say it. Agreed.
Favorite part of, and I'm giving her a couple questions that I didn't prep her on, so she has to think about this. Like what's the favorite part? Like if you had a day where you only got to do the things that you like to do. So like I can tell you, for me, while you're thinking, she's thinking, it would not have a finance committee meeting. No finance committee meeting. Those are not fun for me. What I always tell the committee, and they just laugh at me, whether the numbers are good or it's a bad month, I don't like looking at the numbers. I do it because it's required, right? And we have to do it. But that's that. So it's real easy for me to start with. Least favorite is right over there.
I like that. I actually enjoy working. I'm not so much finance committee meetings, but I do like planning the budget. I do enjoy that.
You like planning?
I like planning.
I like knowing what's going on like that. Like having a goal and a strategic plan. And agreed. We're in agreement on that.
Yeah, I like a day when I'm connecting with staff.
Good.
I like a day when I am thinking about how to advocate for the library system and best show the value that the library system brings to the community.
Good.
Those are things I really enjoy.
That's great. I love hearing that. All right. So we've talked about how you've evolved over the years. We've talked about how you manage some of your energy in a leadership role, which is really important. I hope there's somebody out there taking notes on this, because that's a really valuable piece. Now on we've talked about a little bit about books, but we didn't go all the way into some more favorites right there, but we can come back to that. And I want to ask you on balance. So we both share, we both have dogs that we love.
Yes, we do.
And I think that is a really important piece in who we are. Like I try to get out in time to be able to walk them, for example. And I know I can't all the time. You try to find a time in the day. I don't know if you do that. Like for Poppy, do you get out and walk Poppy, or how do you balance your time around that sweet puppy dog that you have?
Boy. I do try to get out and walk him. I really believe in the restorative power of breaks, even though I am not always good at taking them.
Yes.
I do know that I am better if I do. And so taking him out like midday, whatever time that can be, we just usually walk around the yard. We don't take a big long walk at that point. And let him sniff. And I might listen to a podcast. I might debrief, right? Oh, the sniffing, right? Because you really have to give it time. Give it time. So it's not strictly business, as I also like to say to him sometimes. Strictly business. Let's go. So, I think that makes such a difference in the rest of the day. It doesn't have to be terribly long, but it has to happen. Or I know I get tired and I can't think, I can't talk, I can't. And you have to, especially in these roles, right? You have to keep your ability to think.
Yeah, I find that walk for me I've got two labs. One's a lab mix, and sometimes I do like you. I listen to a podcast walking them, but when I don't, it's a real mind clearing time. I might start a walk where I'm in a bad mood. Poor dogs, if I am thinking about some problem, often work related. And before too long on that walk, it starts to clear up and the solutions they just come. Yeah. It's an incredible thing when you get away from the technology and just outside and are able to think. And then you're also with your little pack there,
That's
right?
Yeah.
Well,
and that's one of the reasons so many people have great ideas in the shower, right?
Yeah.
It's because they're not doing, anything that's distracting them.
Right.
They're kind of relaxed. They're just focused on the tasks at hand. And then suddenly they've got this great revelation about a problem that's been at the back of their mind that they've been worrying at, but sometimes without even realizing they've been thinking about it. And I think the walks midday can do that as well. A relaxing evening can make that happen too. All those things are so important. You have to be more than your job. And you have to nurture that part of yourself. And I'm not talking about bubble baths or anything. Nothing wrong with bubble baths. I love a good bubble bath. But you have to be more than your job.
And finding that clarity. Yeah. So the folks can't see me, but my bracelet says clarity. That's my word this year that I'm really working on. I think there's just been so much noise coming at you all the time between, social media, technology, just all the different ways people can contact you. When we were early in our careers, when we left, whatever time it was at 5 or whenever, we left.
Yeah, it was over.
And, the boss probably still got some calls, right? But they were a call. Mm-hmm. They were not an email. It didn't exist.
Right. And it was probably only for really serious things, right?
Really and truly, because everybody kind of shut it down. So I think we've got some work to do to circle back to a time where we separate those things more and put up those boundaries.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And I'm a big one for that. So when I go on vacation, I do not take my work phone. I do not check my email. I have communicated with my people to say,
right contacts.
If you need me, you text me on my personal phone and I am there for you 100%. And here's the kind of things that I'm hoping that you will connect with me on, because I know I need to get away and come back better. And
That's
I do
great.
Come back better. This time I came back with a cold, but still usually it's better. But that is key. You need to be able to disconnect, and it's so easy to stay connected all the time, but it just, you're not serving anyone. You might think that you're helping because you're answering some emails.
Agreed.
But if you don't disconnect, even on my most recent trip, I would be doing something else, and suddenly something in the back of my mind would think about work, and not in a bad way, but just kind of in a, oh, we need to look at that, and then, okay. And then it went away. It wasn't like I was fixating on it, but I had my mind was clear enough that I could just think openly.
Good. Well, I'm glad you are a proponent for those vacations and that downtime. Yeah, it's really just important to have all that balance. Mm-hmm. I thank you for stepping up into the leadership role at the library system. It's not easy, and we appreciate everything that the library does for our region and a bit beyond with Westmoreland as well. people might not think about it as something connected with the business community or economic development, but it certainly is, because this is a wealth of opportunity for folks to have different experiences and opportunities through a library system.
Yeah. The library is still very much about books and reading, but so much more. The computers, and not everyone can have a computer at home or has internet at home. Educational opportunities, special classes and events, and as well, notary services. And we help a lot of people get their degrees. We help a lot of people pay their taxes and get jobs. And we help a lot of people start businesses and contribute to the economy and the area in new ways.
Well, thank you for that. And we will have the link to your website. Can you say what it is?
Absolutely. librarypoint.org.
So librarypoint.org is where you can look up the Central Rappahannock Regional Library and find out more about what is happening here at the Central Rappahannock Regional Library in, I want to say just Fredericksburg, Virginia, but Fredericksburg, Stafford, Spotsylvania, and Westmoreland. It's a terrific library system with just so many great resources. Rebecca, thank you for being here with me today.
Thanks so much, Susan. It was fun talking with you.
Yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's always great to see you. Again, I'm Susan Spears, and our guest today was Rebecca Purdy. Thank you to our listeners for spending time with us today. If you haven't already liked and subscribed to the Chamber's Leader to Leader podcast, please go ahead and do so. You'll know when new episodes are available, and just think about how many great leaders that you'll get to learn a little bit more about from our region. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you next time.